adults that they have to work through. Even as children, they just don't know how to identify what's going on. So pitch or snitch. Tell your family. Encourage your child to tell. And we want to talk about observing the language of your child so that you know signs. And one way to know the language of your child is to really implement discipline so that you know their behaviors. You know what's working, what's not. You know when they're happy, when they're sad, when they're hungry. We know that about our babies. We know the hungry cry. We know the diaper change. We know all of those things, right? So when they get older and they kind of hit 2, 3, 4 years old, they still may not be able to come and tell you so-and-so touched me improperly. But what they can do is give you some nonverbal communication. Just be sensitive to the environment of your child, because everyone's child is different. Our parenting is different, how we discipline our children, how we communicate with our children. But you have to establish a safety language. That's what I'm going to call it. You have to establish a safety language, which means that when your child is uncomfortable or something is not right, you know that that's a red flag, that something just isn't right. So with the pitch or snitch, and I'm telling you to tell your family, I'm going to give you a really quick story, and then we're going to move on, okay? Had a girlfriend. This is actually the reason why I wrote the 10 Ways to Safeguard Your Child from Sexual Abuse. Went over a girlfriend's house recently, and something didn't feel right. I was in the house. There was just some kind of, I felt a spiritual presence that was not God. It didn't feel right. And I was in her house, something didn't feel right, and we went out on the balcony, we were talking, and I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Have your children ever been sexually abused?" That's what I got. Yeah? I said, okay. I said, well, I feel the spirit of that in the house. Something's going on, and it's affecting the children. What's happened to them is affecting the children. So, her children are very different in their behaviors, and that often happens. Myself and one of my siblings that I happen to know has experienced some sexual abuse. We are very different in certain ways, and that happens. It's no one way that someone reacts, okay? Long story short, we get to talking about it, and I have her permission to kind of share this without saying her name and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But what happened was that an older cousin had been raping her children. We're talking about 4 or 5 years older. And we're talking about all boys. Had been raping her children. And I was livid because I consider her children to be like, my nephews, my family. And I tell this story not to tell her business. I'm telling this story because I want people to understand that when I talk about playtime, how, when, where, how often, it is so extremely important, because here's an older cousin. Why would you have any reason to think that something like this would happen if they're playing in the room, or if you leave them alone in the house while you run to the store, or you understand what I'm saying? And so this is an older cousin. And basically, when she got into the story, she said, well, God said that we shouldn't take people to court. That's why I didn't do anything about it. I said, what happens if he goes out and does this to other people? She said, well, he's getting help. I said, okay. What predator have we ever known? Did we have these powerful testimonies of people that used to molest children and now they don't anymore? Long story short, with these boys having that experience with the older cousin, she then revealed that the older cousin had been raped by someone else in the family who was probably, our age or a little older, what have you. But he's a grown man who had done this to this young boy, who had now done this to her children. These are all family members. I'm confused. Why aren't we talking? Why are we not saying anything? We're keeping this hush-hush in the family. We're not telling anybody. And so now you have, 3 generations. 3 generations. So, snitch. Tell somebody. So, I guess what I'm saying is I want you to tell the world. I want you to tell everyone. You have to say something. We have to stop being quiet about it because it's going from generation to generation to generation to generation. So the only way to stop it is to expose it, right? It's to say something. Number 8 is predators' notes. Okay? You're probably wondering, no one wants to care, but we have to talk about it. What do predators look like? There's no wrong answer. I'm going to give you some statistics. 93% of sexual predators are religious. That means they believe something. 93%. 90% of sexual predators, this is according to a study, 90% of sexual, and this is according to a study that was done by predators. These are predators who admit, I am a predator. I do this, and they were willing to take this because they prescribe to that. Okay, that's how they identify themselves. Because there is a world out there where they feel that what they're doing is normal. That's what I want you to understand today, is that they feel that it's normal. I did this research so that I could bring this to you in this format so that you understand that it's not because they feel they're sick. They're not doing this because they think they're wrong. It's not like drug and alcohol abuse where at some point they know that I'm addicted to something, I just don't want to get right. The mindset of a predator says, this is normal. I just see the world differently than you. I happen to like little boys, and there's nothing wrong with that. Society just says that I shouldn't. Okay? A little alarming to me. For me, when I was younger, and I talk about this in my book, it was my sister's ex-boyfriend, which of course at 4 years old I didn't know what his relation was, but as I got older I finally asked, like, well, who was the dude? Why were they there? They were coming up from North Carolina or something to visit, and they just kind of happened to be hanging out. Here's what's interesting, and here's what makes me angry, honestly, because everybody in my family knew that he had a pending case in North Carolina against another child. So how did they not pay attention to the fact that he was in the house with me? And this happened while, I cannot remember, but I really believe it was my mother or my sister. I know it was one of them, my mother or my sister, that was in the bathroom. Just that quick. And there was nobody else in the house. Everybody else was hanging out. So I want people to get the seriousness of this, and I hope I'm kind of conveying that. What do they look like? They look like you said, the next door neighbor, but it's real. And just think about it. You know, the things that have happened to me, nobody went to jail for it. So how many other people have that same experience where no one was actually convicted? What do they look for? This is interesting, and this is very important. They look for children who have no confidence. They look for children who aren't told that they're valued, who aren't told that they're beautiful. They're looking for the kid in the family who's not accepted, who's the black sheep, for whatever reason. Another thing is, predators are looking at you. They're looking at you. They're looking at how you parent your child. That's what they're looking for. So they become your friend. They do. They become your friend. They become closely connected to you to find out what you're not doing as a parent. And guess what they do? They do it. They do whatever they have to do to gain the relationship that the child is missing. Okay? So if the child is missing time, guess what? The predator becomes available. But I hope that helps you. In case you didn't know these things, I hope that this kind of gives you a different perspective and also a different perception of who is connecting with you. Because everyone has motives, right? Okay. Number 9 is parenting potential predators. So after your child has been sexually abused in whatever way, molested, assaulted, etc., you actually have a new job. You have to actually teach them how not to do it to others. So if they didn't know what good touch, bad touch was before, if they did not know the difference between manipulation and that kind of thing, you now have to teach them, because they have to have the equipment. They have to know that what was done to them was wrong. They have to know it wasn't their fault. And then they also have to know that they can't repeat the cycle. They can't do that to someone else. Just like if someone hits you, they say, you know, turn the other cheek or what have you. So it's deep counseling that has to take place with that. I'm going to speak from being a victor of sexual abuse. You can send them to as many counselors as you want to, and choose not to deal with it yourself. And oftentimes it will create a worse effect, because the child will still see you being separate from them. You're not cultivating the relationship with them. They still can't talk to you. They still haven't learned how to communicate and rely on you. Sending them to counseling is not going to be the solution. You have to become a parent. You have to become a guidance counselor. You have to become a leader in your household. You have to do that if you want to raise a productive citizen who can overcome the trials and tribulations that they have seen at a young age. So parents and potential predators, let them talk to you. Okay, sometimes parents will ask 3,000 questions. How did this happen and why did this happen? And sometimes your tone of voice can be alarming, because it can come across as it's your fault, you shouldn't have been in there, you know, so on and so forth, even if you don't actually say that. So become an amazing listener. Let them talk to you. That's one way to help potential predators. And I know that sounds so strong, but there is a large percentage of sexual victims, sexual abuse victims, who abuse. And so you want to make sure that you cultivate the relationship, that you teach them some things, and that you're not lackadaisical about that. It's hard, and it's uncomfortable, and it's scary. Real quick, my mom read the first chapter of my book and called me, and she said, I want to talk to you about this book. And I called her back, and she said, my heart is hurting so bad for you. And I was like, my God, how far did you get in the book? And she said, I'm on chapter 1. And she said, I never knew, and this is revelation for me. She said, I had no idea that what happened to you when you were 4, that it affected you like that. She just didn't know. I didn't discuss it with her. But there also, my mom was not emotionally available. So I didn't discuss it with her. I didn't talk about it to her. She didn't know. There are other people's parents who don't know, whether they don't want to know, whether they are not in an emotional place to know, whether they don't pay enough attention to you to know. But when she said that to me, it opened my eyes. It was a revelation for me. And I was like, my God, I didn't know. I did not know. And the book provided additional healing for me, but I had done my own kind of search and that kind of thing, and have been healed and so on and so forth, but you can always go deeper. And when she said that to me, it set me free. How are you guys doing? Okay. So we've gone through 9. All right? 10 ways to safeguard your child from sexual abuse. The power and privilege of parenting. Number 2 is planned and purposeful communication. Number 3 is the power of saying no. Number 4 is value. Number 5 is playtime. Number 6 is processing people, trusting people and history of behaviors. Number 7 is pitch, toss it out, or snitch, which is tell everyone. Number 8 is predators' notes. What do they look like and what do they look for? Number 9 is parenting potential predators. Okay. Number 10 of the 10 ways to safeguard your child from sexual abuse is a pledge. I would like for anyone under the sound of my voice to repeat this with me in solidarity. I will not allow a known predator, convicted or not, to be a part of a child's life. I will use the power of my voice to make known the predator's behaviors and plots to protect every child around me. I will pay attention to a child's voice, especially my own, when they express discomfort. I pledge to be a positive parent, protecting my child and others from predators. I was born to be a king. What I possess is on the inside of me. When unleashed, I dominate. I speak and angels move. Heaven comes into the room and all negative energy dissipates. I am a powerful overseer of children, and I have the eyes, heart, and intuition of God. I move in wisdom to protect children from abduction and other harm. I pledge to be more honest with myself and others, to become confident in my power to say no. As I do this, I understand that children who watch my character will learn how to say no. They will learn how to say no in uncomfortable situations. I pledge to be extraordinary. See, you want to get next to me for the moments, not knowing that I'm fully focused, man. God in hand, I'm chosen. Before umbilical cords made waves in mama's belly ocean, I had a dream. The same dream that God put on the inside of me like his kingdom. And you want to know what to say? You want to know what to do to stand in my presence? Try putting on armor that makes you have a nirvana essence. Let's wear the same lights so that when we walk, we don't look like sun ray and sundown. Let's both wear crowns. You want to know who's next to me? My friend, walking like footprints, and I'm not going to give that up for a date that manipulates my mind to make me feel good, because God told me I'm fine. So your compliments are confirmation, not a prelude to bedtime. Come on, get deeper. Or don't come with it at all, because enough men's empty promises have put the promises on hold. And the only honesty I've experienced is God's alone. So get next to me, not even a conversation, till I can see the light, not from your eyes, but your shadow should be mistaken for the sun. Let the glory of God do your hollering for you, not settling. I want the best, and no, you can't get next to me. Because my flesh acknowledges that you're attractive, but my spirit has finally won by authority. And what you want for a moment, God gave his life. And what you see as temporary, God waits for me morning, noon, and at night. He warns me of things to come, like you, for instance. He tells me when to make